Hi, I'm Andrew Green, the COO of Struck Studio. I've been in the trenches of innovation for years, building new tech ventures from scratch and helping big companies transform. You are tuned into Edge of AI, helping folks like yourself navigate the ecosystem and get the most out of the AI economy. Keep listening.
Hello, AI podcast passengers. Jump on in. Here's what's to come on today's journey. Find out how Struck Studio is flipping the venture capital model on its head with AI at the forefront. Find out how Andrew Green and the Struck Studio are using AI to run their operations far more efficiently. And finally, listen as Andrew discusses strong convictions loosely held. All this and more, take your seat. I'm going to go again.
Welcome aboard the Edge of AI podcast. Snap into your safety belt and prepare to explore the depths of the rapidly expanding AI universe. Each episode is a dispatch featuring hyper-relevant reports from the pilots, pioneers, and passengers aboard the AI rocket ship. We explore the latest use cases and developments in AI, hear from experts building tech, and learn how this disruptive force is transforming industries and society.
Welcome aboard. I'm Ron Levy, your captain for today's voyage. Just like most of you, I've embraced the spirit of exploration throughout my life, from starting my own business before graduating high school to traversing the world's most challenging terrains. I've always sought out new frontiers, and I built one of the largest award-winning custom home companies in the greater Los Angeles area. Most recently, I've navigated very complex regulations while founding and leading a public company that's dedicated to applying newer technologies and training. And this dovetails well into AI. Buckle up and get ready. Let's tackle uncharted territories in AI today. And we're going to use curiosity as our guiding star. Today, we've got Andrew Green, the Chief Operating Officer of Struck Studio, where he spearheads the creation of groundbreaking tech businesses from ideation to seed stage investment. Before joining Struck, Andrew led AB InBev's first technology incubator as Global Director and Innovation of Digital Ventures, and his innovative work has earned him a spot on Forbes 30 Under 30 list for marketing and advertising. With a degree in cognitive science and PPE from the University of Pennsylvania, he's got a background in Deloitte's innovation strategy practice. Andrew brings a wealth of experience in design thinking, venture capital, and digital innovation. Welcome, Andrew.
Thanks, Ron. Happy to be here.
Great. Well, you've been at the forefront of both innovation and venture building, which is a great combination. And this show is all about AI. So I'm curious, what was your first experience integrating AI into a business that you incubated, either as as a consultant or on your own, and how you did this, how this experience would have changed your perspective on AI's potential?
Yeah, great question. Maybe not the first, but certainly one of the most impactful. A project comes to mind that we ran at AB InBev years ago that was aimed at helping small businesses in Latin America. So traditionally, the mom and pop stores there, got their product, got their beer through cash on delivery, meaning we'd show up with the beer, they would pay for whatever beer they'd be able to, and they'd sell that, throughout the week. The challenge with that is that these are really cash-strapped businesses. So they often could only afford a certain amount of beer, which might not be the actual amount that they would be able to sell. So this was a project that we took on in the first tech incubator for AB InBev, and the goal was to say, how can we optimize the level of beer that we're able to sell to these mom and pop shops? And so when we thought about it, right, it became the biggest beer brewer in the entire world. We had more sales data, more payments data, more local regional data than anyone else in the world at that time. Why couldn't we figure out how to optimize, this equation for these mom and pops? So we actually built this product using machine learning, taking in all this data where we could more accurately project, what is the projected sales volume for that weekend for that business, to really on a business by business basis say, actually, instead of this number of cases a year, you need, for this weekend, you're going to need double that. And so we could feel really comfortable as a business to give them this beer and allow them to pay it back afterwards, because we were confident that they'd be able to sell through it all. And I love this example because for us at the company, it was such a win-win-win, right? So, AB InBev was selling more beer, the mom and pop shop was selling more beer, and most importantly, all their customers weren't showing up to the store on the weekend to empty shelves. So they certainly appreciate it as well.
And
And
that,
I
that
love
keeps
that.
the flywheel going.
Totally. Everyone's kind of happy in the mix. And, I just love that also as an example of how, there's this incredible wealth of untapped data, that we can use to really drive a lot of the efficiency. And it doesn't always need to be really complicated and complex. There are these use cases for AI and machine learning that can really have a direct impact really quickly.
For sure. And that's that's why this conversation to me is really interesting, because oftentimes we interview companies that are building AI, and you may or may not, we'll get to that, but there's a big moving advantage if you understand machine learning, AI, even blockchain, and you know how to implement them in traditional businesses. And that's exactly what you just described. So seeing a live example is great. And I actually had a touch point with InBev about a decade ago. Which that's when you started talking about that, I kind of love it. I know a little bit about the history of the creation of the company, and
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
makes sense that they would go into all this. So that makes Struck, to me, it makes Struck Studio's approach, kind of unique. And talk to me about that, about the formation of the operations side of Struck, and how that was defined.
Yeah. So, we have a really interesting approach. I'd say over the last 10 to 15 years, you've seen the venture studio space explode. People are taking a new approach to how do you kind of productize the process of building startups and of building early stage companies. And we've taken, people have taken a lot of different models of that. I've now seen, through my career, through launching different studios and incubators and things at Deloitte, through all the work that we did at AB InBev. I like to say that I've seen a lot of ways that it definitely doesn't work. And that always becomes the foundation to figuring out the new model, the new best way to do things. And so, at Struck, we take a lot of pride in really swinging the pendulum all the way to the edge of operator, where, our team is largely built of operators, previous founders, go-to-market experts, venture capitalists who want to be hands-on and want to build. And so our approach is really to say we're going to be co-founders of these businesses that we found. We're going to do the dirty work, get our hands on the product, all the way through getting a company fundraising out. But I think that, for us, the approach has been, how do we bring people with a robust level of operating experience to work together with the CEOs that we bring on board to build great, impactful products.
So you're part of the startup of the companies. You're not looking for companies that are on round 2, round 3 and already going.
Exactly.
Yeah.
True 0 to 1, starting from scratch.
Give me more about that, because that actually makes a lot of sense. Because a lot of times when incubators or venture capitalists get into a company, there's already been some mistakes that either surface right away or surface later. Is that part of your analysis on why you do it the way you do?
Absolutely. And I think that's part of, the value that the studio brings to, an external founder that we're working with, is that we get to spend all that time doing arguably some of the hardest parts of venture building, which is that early 0 to 1 exploration of figuring out what works and probably more often what doesn't work. And so, a lot of our process is spending that time identifying these big problem spaces, really validating that a problem exists to be solved, and that there's someone out there who's willing to pay for it. And we bring that wealth of expertise with a pretty large team early on to go through a lot of that validation work and be able to de-risk these businesses, before we bring on a CEO to co-found the business with us.
Can you give us another example or two of companies that you've taken on and what their product line is as it pertains to AI and emerging technologies?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we're a domain agnostic studio, really focused on software, but really across any domain. We've done some things that are really cutting edge in the AI space. A recent company that we spun out was called Gibson AI, and Gibson AI is AI for software developers. We're doing a lot of the work that a backend software engineer would do. Competing in a pretty competitive space with a lot of funding, but we have world-class engineers and product people who have taken a very strong point of view on how these products are actually used by engineers in this space. Spent a lot of time building a great product with some amazing early customers, for that. So really one example of being, truly on the cutting edge of tech where the core product is AI, right? That's what we're delivering. But on the other end of the spectrum, we have a lot of products that are think of them as more traditional software products that are really injecting AI into the process. We have a great company, for example, called Protocol Foods, which is automating the creation and monitoring of food safety plans for food and beverage manufacturers. So if you think about food safety in a really traditional kind of environment, that's on the manufacturing floor, people with clipboards trying to track whether or not the lines are moving correctly and that everyone's following safety protocols. That's an opportunity for software to automate a lot of these processes, and where AI is not the core product, it's certainly part of that process for making it more efficient and allowing them to deliver a ton of value for these pretty old school businesses.
It's my belief that you can take just about any traditional company, and if you know the AI products are out there, and I guess I'll even say, to me, that's the biggest value of this podcast, is you learn about what's out there and who's on the cutting edge and what products are available. And I think if you can apply those things to traditional businesses, I think you have the potential to exponentially grow at a pace that without that you couldn't have done. I don't want to overemphasize that, but for the benefit of our listeners, they're here to learn about AI, but they're also, interested in the business side of it. And you don't need to start an LLM in order to be an AI, right? You can get the benefits in other ways. So Struck has kind of done that well. And I don't know, can you just speak to that a little bit, to the different directions?
Yeah, I mean, AI has become a part of our entire studio process. So we've played around with tools that are involved in recruiting processes. We're involved with tools that are, playing around with slide and presentation creation. We've even involved AI in a lot of our ideation processes, which is really fun. If you're running a brainstorm with a ChatGPT, for example, to get some insights. But I think that the Gibson AI example of a company that we actually launched and raised capital for and spun out, it's part of our everyday for building our technology company. So, I'll take a moment to brag about our CTO, a guy named Mike Montero, world-class engineer, was the co-founder and CTO of Resi, which he sold to American Express. Mike is first hands-on keyboard for all of our products. But Mike is now coding and building directly with Gibson AI. And to have a world-class engineer like him embracing a lot of these AI products and becoming incredibly efficient, doing things that traditionally took weeks and doing them in minutes or days, is pretty unbelievable. And for us, everything that we do at the studio, it's applicable to any individual business, any individual startup. But for us, it's times 10, because every breakthrough that we have on strategy, on these advantages we get out of AI, applies to all of the companies that we build. So that's been really exciting, finding different opportunities to plug that into our process.
How do you begin? Do you begin with the concept and idea and then go find a CEO, or do CEOs come to you, or entrepreneurs that have ideas come to you, and then you do your diligence and agree to move forward with them? Which direction does it usually work?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both. I think our core model is that we're the ones identifying a lot of the ideas. So we've got a really kind of like diverse team, diverse perspectives that are really good at going out and finding the macro tailwinds and finding these kind of big opportunity areas that we spend a lot of time running very productized, ideation and diligence processes to kind of uncover what those big ideas are. Then we have a very robust validation process that we run through to, I think, first and foremost, confirm that there's actually a problem here that someone is experiencing and that somebody's willing to pay to solve that problem. And then building all of the other kind of pieces of venture building around that before we build enough conviction ourselves that this is a business that should exist, one that we should launch. And now we go find, a great co-founder and CEO for the business. But we've had a bunch of successful, businesses that we're spinning out. We're getting a lot more external CEOs who are saying, hey, I'm thinking about launching this business. And they're having that debate. Do they go launch it by themselves or the co-founder, or do they come build it with our team? And so we're definitely getting a lot more interest from prospective founders who want to come build with us, and they already have kind of that inkling of an idea.
Yeah. I think it's almost like there's a new generation of what's going on right now because of the advent of these new technologies, and it sounds like you've adapted Struck for that. Almost you have to forget about the past and work toward the future, because I find a lot of the venture capital businesses and everything else, they're not a great fit for smaller entrepreneurs in emerging technology. I'm not saying they're bad, they're just not a great fit sometimes. And what you're describing feels to me like a hand in a glove.
Yeah, I mean it's incredible to have this opportunity where you're building together, really early on with founders. You can kind of test and learn, you can find the right direction, you're validating different directions for the business, before you've kind of gone out and immediately gone and raised external capital. I think one of the really neat things about the studio is where we're operating at, call it the pre-seed or idea phase of a lot of these businesses, when typically a founder is either by themselves or maybe with one other, maybe two other co-founders. For us, when we build these relationships, we've got a team of now 13 14 people all working together, supercharging ideas at the earliest stages. And it just leads to a ton of innovation, really fast iterative feedback, and puts us in a position where where we feel like we're months ahead, compared to where you'd be traditionally on your startup journey.
It's really important because things change so much that I've seen great ideas and these new technologies take too long and they get timed out. And years of an entrepreneur's, time has, I'll just use the term, gone to waste. And sometimes exiting is a lot more painful than anything else. So that kind of speed, and this does go back to my touch point with InBev back in the day, which I don't know if it correlates directly now or not, but the first steps that I recall were happening at an amazing pace, having nothing to do with technology, more to do with the management and how they were handling it. They were waiting for nobody and they were moving forward in a very respectful, crazy way. And that's what you're describing here. And I just, the importance of it is tremendous. Stuff is happening so fast now, it's hard to get our arms around it. How many
Yeah.
companies do you figure that Struck has built, spun out approximately? And when was Struck founded?
Yeah, so we started in 2022, and since getting started, we've been ramping up the team, kind of refining, our own processes. And since we've started, we've got four spun out companies and a handful more in the pipeline. Looking for the next CEOs to help build those and lead them. So it's been really exciting to kind of see a lot of that momentum build and finally get to a point where we're in full swing. For us though, our goal is to only launch about three businesses a year, and it's because of our strategy, the way that we feel that we're going to be hands on and take a real quality over quantity approach to our model, which allows us to be true kind of co-founders and builders to the CEOs that we're bringing on board.
Do you have any examples you can share with us on any AI technologies that you've actually purchased and used within Struck to help you with this whole endeavor?
I mean, the best example that I have is I'll keep plugging Gibson AI because it's just been such an incredible unlock for our business. I think that's the one. That's now a spun out company, so the studio has to start paying for our own licenses now that they're their own entity. But it's one we do happily because I think it 100x's our engineering team. So I think from a paid product perspective, Gibson AI is probably the best. We definitely play around with a lot of some of the free things. We're always playing around with all the prompt building in ChatGPT, exploring some things in like recruiting, like I mentioned. But Gibson AI, man, that's the one. If you're a software developer, you got to try it out.
Super great. And I know this was a product, I know when you started in 22, I don't think I'm out of bounds by mentioning it, but you closed a $15 million fund and the goal was to do 15 startup concepts. And it's only 2024 right now, and it sounds like you've got great momentum to that 15. What did you, as you pitched that fund and the fundraising for it and everything, what did you pitch as the significance of your fund and the real value of doing all this?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things. So I think one, you're bringing people who have lived and breathed the startup creation process in their life and have had successful exits in doing so. And that knowledge is really invaluable, right? I think when somebody backs a venture studio, it's certainly an incredible model, but they're really backing the team, right? You're saying that this is a team of people that can supercharge another CEO and maybe more importantly, just reduce the timelines, reduce the kind of speed to the speed to market, or increase the speed to market, compared to what somebody would need to do if they're trying to found a business on their own. I think that's really a lot of the value prop that we pitch, right? It's, we're going to make you faster. We're going to get to market faster. We're going to relieve CEOs and founders of, a lot of that administrative burden, the things that end up increasing a lot of stress levels and really contribute nothing to the sales or product work streams of an early go-to-market. Those are things that we can take off their plate and automate and let people who are really sharp focus on the things that matter. And we can also really productize that fundraising process. We have a lot of expertise in venture capital. Or our CEO is Adam Struck, who founded Struck Capital and has had a lot of success as an early stage investor in the LA ecosystem. And his knowledge allows us to kind of reverse engineer back from what a VC wants to see. And so when we can put that playbook in the hands of a CEO who's been focused on sales, been focused on building product, everything really just kind of comes together. And so when you think about that pitch, what's all that mean when you're pitching our investors, people who invest in the studio? You're trying to take what is maybe a winning, one of every 10 startups. If you're saying 9 out of every 10 startups are going to fail, the idea is that if you build with Struck Studio, the things we're launching, maybe we're winning 9 out of 10 times instead of 1 out of 10. And that's really kind of the North Star that we're aiming for.
That expertise you're describing is critical. It's critical. And I've done a number of startups myself. And when you're fighting with being under-resourced, most of your energy goes to places that are not really where you want it to go to. It's just where you have to go to. And so that kind of support is fantastic. And that sort of endorsement, right? If Struck's taking it on, that's a reputation right there. So that helps a lot. And then the fundraising, most founders know they can just be fundraising full time for years, and it never ends. So you take that off the plate, and you're just creating and bettering the product. And it's some of it sounds kind of cliche, but but really, if you look through the marketplace, you don't find it very often. So it sounds very powerful.
It's true. And I think, the studio model also used to have this kind of strategy that the thought was you were building for kind of the very risk averse, executive who's kind of never founded a company before. And I think what we found is that, really the CEOs that appreciate the studio the most are the ones who've actually tried to start companies before.
Yeah.
They've lived and breathed it, and they realize starting a company on your own is a lonely journey. It's really, really tough. Like, it's one of the toughest things that you can do. To do it with a team, that's world-class, to reduce, how fast to increase how fast I can bring this product to market, to have help in getting the introductions to all of those VCs. Those things are even that much more valuable to someone who's been down that road before. And I think that's made some really interesting, matches for us as we've been recruiting and finding, our co-founders and CEOs for these spinouts.
Well, you haven't even mentioned that I think is also a big pain point for these founders is the legal side of it. Legal advice. You can't afford to pay the attorney, so you got to guess. That can be later, right? And so I assume that's another component that Struck brings to the founders.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's a really big deal. So location wise, you guys I know you're located in Los Angeles. Do you work worldwide? What's your focus when it comes to what part of the world you're working in?
Yeah, so we have an office in Santa Monica, but our team is dispersed everywhere. So we've even got some folks on our design and engineering teams that are in Europe and Latin America. We've got a handful of people in New York as well. So we're pretty dispersed, and we've gotten really good at working in kind of that remote model. I think we've all been really, really comfortable there, and different touch points. It's been great to kind of host a team together in LA in our office space. Or meet other places in the world where we get some time to work together face to face. But it's been great, because I think having that kind of combination, right, where we'll get together and work in person, but we're also letting everybody kind of live in their best environment where they can be most efficient, and also where they're touching on different trends, meeting different people, doing different things. They give us kind of this kind of global view, and which is really critical when you're trying to think of the next idea. Definitely can't live in your bubble when you're trying to think of the next billion-dollar business.
No, it certainly makes a lot of sense that this whole industry is being developed globally. So, you don't want to put any restrictions on it. So the kind of companies you funded and what you've done from this day behind us, right? As we look forward and go into Q4 and go into next year, is your philosophy continually more, so I'm sure, but has it changed? Is there anything that is important to you today that wasn't 6 months ago?
I think we've learned a lot over our first kind of two and a half years in this business, and I think we're always iterating on our process. And I think one of the core tenets, for me, is we're thinking about what are these next businesses that we want to launch. We hold this bar really, really high, because when you set yourself this target, right, of we're going to launch 15 businesses over maybe a 5-year span, that's not that many. And when you think about it, if we've got, 4 spinouts already, and there's potentially 11 more that we want to launch, every time you're thinking about a new business, you're asking yourself, is this one of 11? Like, if we've only got that many shots, is this one that we're going to take? And I think that's really resonated. And so that's pushed us earlier on in the process, to really build that conviction, around every business that we launch. I think one thing that we do that's really, really important is, before we even hire a CEO, we're trying to sell this business ourselves. We start doing that kind of really nitty gritty work that has to be done to determine, like, do we know the sales channel for this? Do we show a willingness to pay from potential customers? Do we think we're solving a real problem? Because if we can't build that conviction ourselves, it's really hard to imagine, someone else or a co-founder that we're bringing on to do it. So there's a lot of that we're able to now front load, because we realize the importance of making sure that this is a business that we want to make a bet on, and if we find the right founder, we think can be really successful.
Really, I don't know, the expertise you and your team have brought to it have made all the difference in the world. And what I'm hearing is a real great support system for AI that's coming out. Look at the big companies that are investing in the very, very expensive projects. That's already in place. We don't have to worry about that. But I do believe that smaller projects with newer entrepreneurs can do a lot in this industry and become those big companies not that many years out in the future. So to me, you're reinforcing all that. And I think it's critically important. I think it's really a big deal.
Yeah, I think one thing I really love there too is, when we're thinking about some of these ideas and the founders that we're bringing on, is finding people with this level of domain expertise, right? When we talk about the concept we launched at AB InBev and some of these other concepts, that are really relying on these super unique data sets, these super unique views from, like, niche industries. I think those are places where there's just so much untapped potential for AI to do a lot of good.
Yeah.
So when we're able to say, look, from an infrastructure perspective, our studio, we can build you world-class product, and we can help you design world-class go-to-market strategies and go execute on these plans. If we can find CEOs that are bringing this domain expertise and these relationships in these spaces, really understanding kind of those unique data sets, it's like a match made in heaven for us when we're thinking about launching that next product. And I think that's been a really interesting place for us, spending a lot of time.
All right. Well, that conversation's been about getting to know Struck, what you're doing. That's obviously very impressive, but we're gonna dovetail a little bit here. This is gonna be about you, Andrew. So
All right.
I'm gonna ask you 10 quick questions. We refer to it as AI wants to know. A little more about what makes you tick. The intent is, quick, short answers, but if you want to elaborate on any of them, please do. There's no restrictions here. So are you ready for this?
Yeah, let's go. Hit me.
All right. What's the first thing you ever remember being proud of?
First thing I remember being proud of. I don't know if it's the first one, but the one that always comes to mind. After my first job, I bought my parents a snowblower. So I wasn't living at home anymore to help them shovel the driveway. I knew they would never buy one themselves. I finally had a little extra cash in my pocket, and that was the first thing that I bought for them. So that one always sticks with me. I love that moment.
Oh, that's fantastic, because it means the first thing you were proud of was giving. So that bodes well. What do you need help with that you wish you didn't?
Oh man, living in the world of AI, I wish I was a software developer. Fun fact: when I started college, I was actually one of the first artificial intelligence majors that was combining a computer engineering degree and a cognitive science degree. But unfortunately, I decided that I didn't like coding at the time. So I'm not going to say I regret moving on and moving to the business side, but definitely today I wish I had spent a little more time developing my software development skills.
Well, that's but that cognitive science that you studied has to help you tremendously. And
it helps a lot. Yeah.
So not a waste of time. Well, what do others often look to you for help with?
I think I do a really great job of managing a lot of different projects and work streams, which is really core to running any studio. So, being able to kind of have that view across different businesses that we're launching, and be able to pool learnings from each and kind of swap and share them with others. I think that's a place where I could spend a lot of my time and, working with our team really closely. So I'd say that.
Yeah. And what is it that you treasure most about your human abilities?
Oh, it's got to be resilience, man. There's always a way through the obstacles, and I think when you're building in startup land, there's a lot of hills and valleys, and I think it's always amazing when you look back, when you look back at some of the most challenging times that you had. You can look back and say, like, wow, we made it through that. We pushed through it, and those are the kind of experiences that I think really, really keep you pushing for the next one. So
Yeah.
definitely resilience. Yeah.
There's a quote I'm going to repeat, and so it's not original by me. It ties into that a little bit. In business, things are never as good as they seem, and they're never as bad as they seem.
Yep. Yep.
Right.
Sounds about right.
Yep. Throughout your whole life, what is the most consistent thing about you?
Most consistent thing about me. I think for me, I'm always trying new things, and I think that's really important. So I grew up in kind of a small town outside of Philadelphia, and pretty much every experience that I've had since then has been net new and growth. I've lived in New York and San Francisco and Los Angeles. My wife is from Brazil, and so I've met an entire another culture through her and her family. And I think just kind of always finding something new to learn, trying something new is something that I've really dedicated a lot of my life to. So while that's always new, I think the consistency there is always trying to find the next thing.
Yeah, adventure. Throughout your
Yeah,
whole life,
that's right.
what has changed the most?
What has changed the most? I would say, if I'm being really honest with myself, what's changed the most is just your kind of willingness to bring in new data and kind of change your opinions on things. I think as a young kid, I was always very stubborn, and I had like a very strong point of view and personality about a lot of things. And I think that the more that I've worked, especially in the venture world, where most of the time you're wrong, we like to operate under strong convictions loosely held, and I think that's for me has been an incredible evolution that has been the nature of a lot of the things that I've got to work with, the amazing people that I've gotten to work with, that teaches you've always got something else to learn.
I see a turning point in life when you go from wanting to make sure you have the right answer to wanting to make sure you have the right question.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Very true. Very true.
Right.
And couldn't be more relevant when you're building new companies also, because
But
it's every day.
strong convictions and loosely held. I'm going to remember that one. I really love what you said there. It's really great. So, what do you find strangest about reality?
Right now, man, time zones. I spent the last decade in New York, moved out to California, and the realization is that everyone has spent their entire life generally living in one place where they just thought that's how things are. The football games come on at 10 a.m. here, and versus 1 p.m. on the East Coast, and you just believe that's how things are. And I think about how different that is. So maybe that's a very small, a very small, strange thing of reality, but one that's been hitting me a lot lately. I've got the time zones are chasing me now, and I'm less ahead of the game being on the West Coast.
Oh yeah, your East Coast people are calling you very early in the morning, but
That's right. That's right.
your end of afternoon is pretty quiet, so that's good.
Very true. Very true.
Yeah. When most recently do you remember feeling alive? That rush of feeling we all get sometimes.
Um, I actually had a really great moment. My wife and I drove down to Palm Springs for the first time the other week, and I just remember we were driving kind of through the desert on the highway, having one of those moments. And just had a real break. I think for the first time in a while, and really felt really good, really grateful, really thankful for a lot of the things that we have and things we've been working on. And so I think that was like such a refreshing moment where felt really positive and a lot of gratitude in that moment. So that's definitely kind of the most recent time I can recall that feeling.
Fantastic. Done that drive many times, and that's a head clearer right there. That's great.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you see as your most unique trait?
Most unique trait. I've met a lot of really interesting people, I think, in my life, and I think I've lived in a lot of different circles, from a hometown that I grew up in to attending a very, very different Ivy League university to living in New York City and being on the West Coast. And I've just gotten to meet a lot of different people with a lot of different perspectives, and I think that's built for me such like an incredible, unique viewpoint on the world, the way people work together, the different experiences that people had, and just having a different level of empathy for a lot of the people that I work with, realizing everyone's coming from a different place, dealing with different stuff, and I'm very privileged to have met so many great people that have given me kind of that unique perspective.
Love that. And I get it clearly. If you weren't human, what would you be?
Oh, that's an easy one. I'd trade places with either of my dogs any day. Like those two got an 80-pound golden retriever, 60-pound boxer. They're living the life, So I do it in a heartbeat.
I think I get that. I get that completely. So nothing like being around animals. They get instant and pure. It's probably just like babies
That's right.
for all these small children. It's just
Yeah,
very, very
yeah.
pure. It's really great. We're gonna, by the way, that was the 10 questions. You did great. That was fantastic. Thank you.
Perfect. Perfect.
We're going to head to the next segment, which is AI leaders and influences. So, is there anybody in the AI world that has been significantly important as an influencer to you?
So I maybe not an individual person, but one, this venture studio industry, has been really interesting. It's a unique space that's pretty new. Compared to venture capital, there's tons and tons of firms. There's not that many venture studios, and most of them have been launched within the last 10 years. And because of that, it's rather friendly. It's while we're all, I guess, in theory, competing for venture dollars in our startups, it's really collaborative, and there's a lot of best practice sharing, storytelling, kind of and really awesome kind of collaborative culture there. And so when I think about how AI has impacted a lot of our day to day in the work, every leader of other venture studios, people in my shoes working in other studios, are dealing with a lot of these same problems and are all tackling it from different angles. And so I really look to a lot of the other leaders of venture studios who are also building AI projects, because they're bringing ideas and nuance and points of view that we don't have every day. So, it would be more for me to say it's a shout out to the other venture studios trying to build the cutting edge from scratch, day in, day out, that I found really inspiring. I've learned a lot from.
It reminds me of the blockchain industry, which I've been in for the last decade. It's the same thing. The industry is bigger than the resources of people and ideas that exist right now, and capital that exists right now. So being in that industry, especially early on, we didn't have the same competitiveness as in traditional business, right? Holding your cards close to your vest. Everybody was sharing everything because there was more than enough to go around. It was there for anybody that could efficiently move forward. And the same thing, probably to a bigger order of magnitude, is true with AI right now. So I get what you're just saying, and I think it's important for people to understand, our listeners to understand. That's why AI is so exciting. There's room for everybody. This is so big, moving so fast. Come on in. You're going to find people that are willing to share and willing to help others. So I think it's great. With that, I hope that wasn't a setup to put you on the spot, but for this segment, we'd like to give our listeners, places to go to follow some people. Are you comfortable giving any of those contact informations? I just mean names or something, so they can go look for them themselves and find out who can influence them for their next steps of the journey.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I think more from like a people kind of posting on social media perspective, or kind of people.
Yep, absolutely. Just they can follow and look at and track.
Yeah. I would definitely seek out Harish Mukami, who is the CEO of Gibson AI. He's tackling an area where there's a lot of competition and a lot of funding, and I think he has a really, really unique viewpoint on the space when it comes to AI and software development. So definitely someone I highly recommend. Meeting up with, getting his point of view, testing out the product. Definitely going to be a leader that I think we'll be hearing a lot more from in the coming months.
Do you have a website for Gibson AI that you can share? The URL?
Yeah, it's gibsonai.com.
All right, fantastic. So I certainly am going to go there, and I'm sure a lot of others are. So that's really, really helpful. So how about resource list? Any place where you go, for resources on a regular basis?
I would say I spend probably a lot of my time, again, following a lot of my studio peers who are in the day in, day out of building on LinkedIn. I think people are sharing a lot of their stories of like, hey, just tried this tool, didn't work so well, or tried this tool and it was great. It saved me a ton of time. I think my most recent is I'm digging in a bunch to some of the recruiting tools. Haven't really found the one yet, but I think it's a really interesting space. When you're getting thousands and thousands of applications, and yours truly is also the HR and recruiting department with in a small company. It's you spend a lot of time trying to find the right people, and tools there I think are really interesting. So definitely a space that I'm keeping an eye out for.
I'm going to give an example to support that, and this is not for HR recruiting, but it plays into it. There was a company that I interviewed, it was a couple of years ago now, but they had developed an AI that could immediately tell someone's personality by them speaking not more than, I'll say, 5 or 6 words. They can tell their mood and their personality. And where they used it was for phone centers. So they would have all the operators speak into this, so they knew their personalities. Then when a caller called, they could tell, the AI could learn if the person was mad, pleasant, and it would match it up with the right operator, and it would direct the calls to the right places. And the increase of productivity was something like 30 to 40%. It's kind of spectacular.
Wow.
And it plays into what you're talking about. Why not for HR? Why not take everything we've ever known, put it in an AI box, and say, do the assessment and do it right now?
Yeah. I'm not sure I want to be the call center person responsible for only the angry people, but it's definitely a skill set, I'm sure.
Very,
Someone
very
has it.
well
So.
put. Very well put. We're heading toward the end, Andrew, but this has been fantastic. And I just want to leave it to you for if people want to follow you and what you're up to, any where you would direct them, what your handles are, things like that, or anything that we didn't cover that you'd like to speak about.
No, for sure. I mean, we're, always happy to connect with people on LinkedIn, either through my personal account, Andrew Green, or our Struck Studio account as well. I'd say that's where we do a lot of our posting to our network, whether, we're looking to connect with experts on new products we're looking at, recruiting new CEOs, or honestly just sharing a lot of the great work we're doing. I think we get a ton of value kind of building in the open with our network and getting a lot of feedback really fast. So definitely encourage people to connect with us there. We also have our website, struckcapital.com. We've got a studio section on there that we post some things that we're working on. So, but always happy to connect, and definitely encourage anyone to reach out.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure, and I'm sure our listeners are gonna absolutely love this episode. So I really, really appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me, Ron. Really appreciate it, man.
You got it. But it's time for another safe landing at the outer edges of the AI universe for today. This is your Captain Ron, and on behalf of our guest and the entire crew, I'd like to thank you for choosing to voyage with us today. We wish you a safe and enjoyable continuation of your AI journey. And when you come back aboard, make sure to bring a friend. Our starship, it's always ready for more adventures. If you're listening, go to Spotify or iTunes right now, rate us. Or if you're watching this on YouTube, join over 130,000 other followers by hitting the subscribe button and passing this episode on to a friend or two. You can also now catch us on myco.io, which is myco.io, where you can watch and earn for your time and attention. Don't forget to visit edgeofai.xyz, where you can learn more about partnering and subscribe to the Outer Edge newsletter for the latest Edge of company news, events, and
the views and opinions expressed on Edge of AI reflect solely those views and opinions of the show hosts and its guests. Please make sure to do your own research. While we make every effort to ensure that the information about AI technology is accurate and up to date, we cannot guarantee its accuracy, completeness, or timeliness. We make no representations or warranties of any kind with respect to the information, products, or services discussed. Please be aware AI may occasionally generate incorrect or misleading information and produce offensive or biased content. Under no circumstances shall we be liable for any loss or damage, including, without limitation, indirect or consequential loss or damage, or any loss or damage arising from loss of data or profits arising out of or in connection with the use of technology discussed on our podcast. Additionally, our show is not financial advice. You understand that you are using any and all information available on or through this podcast at your own risk. Whenever making financial decisions, we recommend doing your own research and talking to your accountant for financial advice. Lastly, time to time, we may feature sponsored content on the show for which we receive value, and we may share links for which we receive a commission if you make a purchase through one of these links. Refer to our website, edgeofai.xyz, for our full disclaimer, terms and conditions, privacy policy, and copyright notice.